And we are back. Welcome back, everyone, to the live stream. This time we are here for the qualifying session ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix, where the weather has taken a turn for the worse. As you can see, we've got 45% chance of rain for Q1, 45% chance for Q2, and 25 for Q3, with extreme weather for the first part of qualifying. I'm once again JW97, and as promised in practice, I'm joined this time by Dennis Graff.
Yeah, hello everybody. Great to be here. How are you, Joe?
I've been better, obviously. I'm obviously still a bit to go before I can get back to the editing suite, but in terms of commentary, I'm feeling good. So
Yeah,
obviously
that's
we're
great.
here for Q1, and I might as well ask you, Dennis, who do you believe will be eliminated in the first part of qualifying?
Yeah, with rain, that's another story compared to the dry. But I would say both Haas, both Williams, one AlphaTauri, and one Aston Martin.
Okay, I'm going to say both AlphaTauris, both Williamses, and I'm going to say both Aston Martins. I think both Alfa Romeos will get through into Q2, I believe. So, obviously, extreme wet conditions, as you can see. We've got the extreme wet tyres on, as you can see, with the grey colour code around the outside of the rubber. An 18-minute session for this first part of qualifying. Again, you guys let us know your predictions in the stream chat, as it looks like Patel's going to get first on track unless somebody beats him to the punch, and somebody does beat him to the punch. It is, in fact, Daniel Fraser in the Haas who's going to be the first car out on the racetrack. Of course, got his first ever points in the top class here last season, of course, and the only points that Haas ever achieved in the 2020 season, which meant they got beaten by Manor, the outgoing Manor in the Constructors' Championship, one that Haas will want to forget very quickly. And, of course, the team are currently last in the Constructors' Championship after what has been quite a disastrous second half of the season for the American team. Now looking at the predictions in the stream chat. So Rob's predictions are, he says Felix, Miklos, David, Roland, Amelia and Daniel will get eliminated in the first part of qualifying. As Von Chanek has said, both Williamses, both AlphaTauris and both Hasses. As Chris has said, both AlphaTauris, both Hasses and both Aston Martins. So they are the predictions that we see in the stream chat, as currently we have 13 cars out on the track, as all 22 cars are still yet to filter their way out on the racetrack, and it was actually 12 cars when I spoke just then, not 13. I do apologise, as Fraser makes his way up through the hill, as he will be starting his lap quite soon in the extreme wet weather conditions. And so yeah, last time out, Dennis, obviously because you're in the commentary box now. Last time out in Monza, it's safe to say I obviously got an opinion from you, but a very interesting race in Monza with the changeable conditions, and our car got it perfectly spot on.
Yep, indeed. Car definitely managed to weather to perfection. He got the strategy spot on, as he said. Yeah, it was very interesting to see rain at the beginning, then drying up as the race did further go. But yeah, there was a lot of strategy chaos, I would say. Yeah, for a few drivers gone very right, but few did go very wrong. But now let's see Fraser's first lap here.
Indeed so, as he's now starting his lap now then. All 22 cars are out on track, so Fraser shouldn't have any worries when it comes to traffic as he makes his way into the first two turns now on the racetrack. Quite a fast opening sequence of corners in the dry, at least. In the wet, probably take it a little bit more cautiously than what you would do if it was the dry. Through into the S's now then would go Daniel Fraser. Very interesting sequence of corners as he now makes his way up through the long right-hander before making his way up the hill towards the left-hander now then. It looks flat out, but in actual fact when it's dry you do have to do a tiny little lift going through into there, as Fraser now then approaches the end of the first sector to do a 36.058 in the first sector, as he now makes his way through into the second part of the right-hander, now going underneath where the figure of 8 section of the track is, before making his way up the hill towards the hairpin. So into hairpin left then will go Daniel Fraser in the Haas now then, as he now makes his way towards the long swooping right-hander before he makes his way towards Spoon Curve and soon towards the end of sector number 2, which will actually be just before 130R in fact, so he's actually not as close as I thought there. I do apologise, but anyway, through into the second part of Spoon we go. Just looking at everybody else's lap times in the first sector, 35.1 for Garbo in the first sector there, 34.9 for both Mercedes, in fact, of Lopez and Carr. So both Carr and Lopez going quicker than Garbo in the first sector. 126.757 for Fraser in the second sector there in the Haas as he now makes his way towards the Casio chicane now then. Flicking the car in for the right and then into the left-hander he will go before he makes his way around the right-hander and now making his way down the pit straight now then and across the line will come Daniel Fraser in the Haas. Across the line he'll go as we've got a yellow flag in fact at the double right-hander and it's Miklos Gall's actually session done with and he's had quite a big shunt to the barriers there and that's his session done with and he'll be starting, well I would say last, but given that there's two drivers out there with grid penalties, it might not be last, it could be 20th, it depends on where Wilson and Anderson end up because they had, of course, I've got 10 place grid penalties, and it wasn't contact with Galloway. It was more of a case of Gal being scared a bit by Galloway, and then to saying the damage coming off the curb. But no lap time for Gal, and, well, not exactly ideal for him.
No, not really for him. It was not very good as Kunin.
Perrin actually got some damage from that, so he'll have to come back into the pits to get a new front wing for that one. Luckily, his wheels didn't get detached from it, otherwise that would have been his qualifying done with as well. Luckily, it was just his front wing that got damaged. But it's currently a Mercedes 1-2 because Lopez and Carr, as expected, have gone quicker than Garber on that lap. Nearly 6 tenths quicker Lopez went on his fellow Franco there, as the game is currently being paused just to ensure that Gal doesn't get back out onto the racetrack because, of course, we do have the spare car ban, so just bear with, guys. It should be just a quick little adjustment to ensure that Gal doesn't get back out on the track with no lap time whatsoever. And so let's just wait a little bit. But Lopez currently top by nearly 6 tenths of a second ahead of Garber. But of course, in fact, he's 85 thousandths ahead of Carr, in fact, and nearly 6 tenths quicker than Garber. Patel 4th, Willows 5th, Burns 6th, Fraser 7th, and Griffiths in 8th. As now we've got the spare con ban enabled. Now we'll get back to the lap times as Q-Pop, meanwhile, went into 6th, but it became 7th when Byrne crossed the line. I think he may have got a little bit held up by Q-Pop, so P6 for Byrne. Sontag goes into 9th, 10th now then, as it seems that Wilson may have had a part to play in that accident. I would have said there would have been a soft and harder extreme tyre, but there actually isn't, so I think those two may have just been a little bit held up there. As Rote goes into 4th, Anderson goes into 6th position, De Rosa goes into 3rd. Here comes Jake Galloway in the Ferrari as he now makes his way onto the straight. I'm not sure if he got a little bit held up by what happened in front with Perinen and Gal, but he goes into 11th because I think that was Galloway who was behind Perinen when he lost his front wing. As Federi crosses the line to go into 8th position as Perinen now comes back into the pits to get the front wing repaired. I wonder if they did get a little bit held up by Perinin, who he was going slow to avoid going into the barrier. But they are the first laps done with, and we still got we still need Perinin to set a representative time because, of course, he lost his front wing from the damage he sustained from Gal's crash. And Gal, of course, is not going to be setting a time at the moment. So far in the drop zone, we have Quag, Wilson, Sontag, Griffiths, of course, Perinin because he lost his front wing, and, of course, Gal, who will not be taking any further part in the session. But currently, a Mercedes 1-2 at the moment, Dennis, with De Rosa in 3rd.
Yeah, indeed. For Mercedes, it was very good first laps. I think the car is very much suited to the wet track. And also to this track, as we've seen in practice. But also, it's not currently looking like Mercedes is struggling like so far in the season qualifying, if you remember, most of the time. But yeah, currently it's looking good for Mercedes.
Indeed so, and so far they are 1-2, but of course we've still got plenty of time left, and of course Perinin is still yet to set a time because of course he got damaged earlier on from the Gal crash. Rob's just asked a question. Thoughts on the announcement that there will be 6 sprint races in 2023? I heard that was just a rumour at the moment, Rob. I think
it was announced.
It was announced. I haven't seen that.
Yes.
Well, I don't like the sprint race. Well, I don't like the sprint race format, so you can imagine what my reaction is going to be on that one. There should be sprint races at all, in my opinion, because they don't add anything to the weekend.
I have 2 words for this.
I'm going to quickly jump in and say pomotalkeellisia lapsen tasolla.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
I think Rob will translate that because I know he says that quite a lot, but I don't know what that means in English. So anyway. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of sprint races, as you can probably tell. Luckily, I don't think we'll ever implement that in the OC. Anyway, Perinin has now come back out with a new front wing. So Perinin has now come out onto the racetrack with a brand new front wing. The question is, though, will he get any traffic? That's going to be a bit of a question mark there, as he just makes his way around the first 2 turns on the racetrack. Boss is primitive at the level of children. Oh, okay, that's what it meant in English. Oh, fair enough. Anyway, as Perinin now then makes his way through into the right-hander, and currently yet to set the time as well, of course, because for anybody who's just missed it, of course, Gal crashed, and of course he lost his front wing, meaning he had to come back into the pits whilst he was on a lap. But Perinin will be hoping there'll be no traffic, because of course everybody would have just come back into the pits at this point. So there is a risk that he could come into contact with some traffic, but we'll have to wait and see on that, as he now makes his way up towards the hairpin now then. With just under 10 minutes to go in the session, as his teammate and Franco Lopez have just come out onto the track. Byrne and Lopez. Patel has just come out onto the racetrack as well. As you can see on the mini-map on the top right of your screen. And, of course, from the timing screen on the left-hand side as well. Makes his way through into Spoon Curve, as he now makes his way towards the end of the second sector quite soon now then, as he now makes his way onto the straight before making his way towards 130R, and through 130R now then he goes before he makes his way towards the Casio chicane, and now through the right then to the left, and he will now start his next flying lap, his first flying lap I should be saying, because his previous one obviously got ruined. But let's see, will there be any traffic for Perinin to negotiate, as there is some traffic coming out of the pits there. That looks like Jamie Griffiths, but the question is Perinin going to get interfered? And he's
I think
right.
he will.
It looks like he's on the gearbox, but I think there is still a little bit of room there, but I think he's going to quickly gain into the corners, given that the Renault is definitely... Well, obviously, it's obviously a much better car than the Williams, and this is going to, in fact, impact Perinin's lap as a result. And, he needs to put a time on the board, but I wonder how much time he's going to lose with this hold-up, Dennis.
I think he will quite lose a lot of time, because if you look at the sector split, 1.2 seconds of the current best first sector, or the first sector of Lopez. Yeah, and if you look at Griffith's first lap, I don't think this will be a good lap from Jesus, sadly.
No, it doesn't look like it, and that's pretty
But
much
it's not
that.
his fault, at least.
Obviously, the first time around, it was because of debris, and on this occasion, he's been held up. And, let's see what his second sector is going to be like compared to Lopez, with Griffiths just in front of him. Galloway still in the pit lane, and I think he is going to stay there, because there's usually going to be one car that gets left behind. And, of course, we've obviously got Gal in the pit lane, because, of course, he obviously crashed out, and because of the spare car ban, it means that he will not take any further part in the session. And unless... depending on where Anderson and Wilson end up, because let's not forget those two have 10-place grid penalties, he's going to start in last place, but we'll wait and see what happens on that one. At the moment, Wilson is currently in the drop zone, so that would elevate Gal at one position at the very least, but we'll have to wait and see if Wilson can get out of that. Perinin across the line, and he goes into 17th as a result of being held up, so he is in the drop zone, but still, he's got plenty of time to do a second flying lap, as there is 7 minutes left the session, as we now look at Franco Lopez, who's currently at the top of the timing sheets, but currently down on his personal best in the first sector, as he now makes his way towards 130R, but he's actually found some time in the middle sector. He's now 81 thousandths up on his personal best now then, as he now makes his way towards the Casio chicane now then, through the right, and then into the left-hander, and let's see if Lopez can further improve on his current fastest time, as he now makes his way around the right-hander, making his way down the pit straight, and the two-time world champion comes across the line now then. Improve, and no he doesn't. He loses time in the last sector and goes 32 thousandths slower than his 1 minute 47.142 lap time. Bernie's on an improvement across the line, and he goes into 6th position there. Patel across the line goes into 4th, an improvement there for him. Here comes Franco Gamba, who's also on an improvement in the Red Bull. He comes down the pit straight, and across the line he will go now. Then this looks like a very good lap, and it is 1.4 seconds quicker. 1 minute 45.742. Gamba with a very big lap there in the wet conditions. Carr not able to match it, and he stays in third position. Motrin across the line, he will go, and he goes into 12th position. Sontag across the line, he's also on an improvement. Across the line, he will go, and he goes into 15th. Fraser goes into 14th. Of course, Sontag, I think, got held up on his first lap, if I'm not mistaken. Q-Pot goes up into 6th position. I wonder if the track is starting to improve a little bit. That's what I'm wondering. As Roke is up on his personal best, can he get close to his teammate? It looks like also a good lap here. Roke across the line, and he does go into 2nd place, but he's still 7/10 off his teammate. As DeRosa now goes into 2nd place, 2/10 off of Garber. What can Willows do? Across the line, and he goes into 7th place for the time being. Perenin comes back into the pits. I expect him to do a second flying lap because he's obviously currently in the drop zone, being held up by this man right here, Jamie Griffiths, and he goes 21st. He improves, but remains in 21st. I wonder if Perenin had something to do with that, as he's 5 seconds off of Garber. Frederi goes up into 4th position. Chatfield across the line goes into 5th, as here comes Amelia Wilson now then in the hats. I do wonder if the conditions are definitely improving at this stage, as Wilson crosses the line in the Haas and goes into 13th, gets out of the drop zone. Anderson across the line, and he goes into 8th position. Chung across the line, she will go, and she goes 9th in the Lamborghini as Lopez goes back in the pits. Quag is also on an improvement now then in the Alfa Romeo, and he's currently in the drop zone down in 20th. Let's see if he can get out of the drop zone and push Galloway into the drop zone, which won't be good news for Ferrari if that's the case. Quag across the line, and he goes 17th, so not, excuse me, not able to do that as I lost my voice there, so not able to push Galloway in the drop zone at the moment, and that is the second lap's done with. But well, a lap from Garber there, Dennis. Of course, DeRosa was able to be within 2/10 of him, but still to be over a second quicker than the Mercedes, that was a very good lap.
Yeah, that was a very good lap indeed. That was full commitment, but also I think the track is improving. But still, it's a great effort for him. Also for DeRosa, the same goes for Frederi, currently in P4. 3 Italians in the top 4.
Indeed, and Patel gets pushed back into the garage. So far then in the drop zone, we have Quag, Fraser, Sontag, Perenin, who of course got held up, and Griffiths, who I think Perenin may have had a part to play in that as well. And of course, Gal is obviously out in this session because of course he crashed out earlier on. Gal has got to be a little bit worried, it's fair to say, because he's currently in 16th position, and if any more improvements start to happen in that drop zone, he could be in a bit of trouble here.
Yeah, but I think he will have enough time to go out on track as Griffith was saying. I mean, Perenin goes out on track now, so he will have lots of time. But
he did hold up there, Dennis, so I think you can be forgiven for that. So, Perenin is now out on the racetrack there, as there's still some cars who still need to come into the pits. Question is, though, will he have traffic again? And given that he's had to obviously come out a bit earlier, given what happened to him earlier on in the session, there is that risk factor, and he's got to hope he gets a clean lap in, because otherwise he's going to get himself eliminated, possibly through no fault of his own.
Yeah, that would be a huge shame for him. But as he said, it wouldn't be his fault, but he has that one lap. He definitely has to pray that he doesn't get any traffic, and has to hope that his lap time will be good, which I expect will be, because the Renault is fast.
Indeed it is, as Perenin now then just making his way around the long swooping right-hander now then, as Perenin will be starting his final flying lap very, very soon. Lopez has come back out on the track, as has Carr, as has Patel. So there are 4 cars out there at the moment. The question is Perenin going to get held up again? That's going to be the question. There's still movement in the pit lane, as you can see. So some cars will be able to get one more flying lap in, others won't. And Quag, Fraser, Sontag and Griffiths will be hoping they can get out there before the 1:45 threshold, you could say. As Perenin now makes his way towards the Casio chicane now then, and Quag, Fraser, Sontag and Griffiths have only got 5 seconds to get themselves back out onto the track, and Sontag does, but the others don't. So I'm afraid Quag, Fraser and Griffiths, safe to say they are out. Sontag has given himself one more chance to get himself through into Q2. Same, of course, with Perenin, unless he gets held up by traffic. Is there any traffic by the time he comes back down the straight? And the answer to that is no. So Perenin will get a clean lap in on this occasion. So as long as he doesn't make any mistakes, and as long as the car works very well for him, he should get comfortably into Q2. But let's see what happens now then, as he makes his way through into S's, through the left, through the right, and then into the left and right-hander he will go. in the car in through the left and then into the right, as he will soon be going up the hill quite soon before approaching the end of the first sector very, very soon. Through the left-hander goes the Spaniard, as he will now make his way towards the end of the first sector now. Then let's see what Perinen's first sector is going to look like, and he is 1.5 seconds down on Gamba in the first sector, but 2 tenths up on his personal best, as expected, given that he obviously got held up by Griffiths, and don't know where that would put him at the moment, but we'll obviously keep an eye out on that. But it's not a very good first sector for Perinin, it's fair to say. Maybe he'll gain time in the second sector. Let's see as he now comes out of the hairpin now then, before he makes his way through the long swooping right-hander now. Then we go. So he will now make his way towards Spoon Curve now then. As through into Spoon now then we'll go Perinin, as he will now make his way through the second part of Spoon. The left-hander he goes, as he will now make his way down the hill before approaching the end of the second sector quite soon now then, as Perinin, let's see what his second sector is like compared to his personal best, as there goes Garma's time, and he is 1.2 seconds up on his personal best, but 2.5 seconds off of Gamba at this stage. That is not very good indeed, and well, he may end up in the top 16. As long as he's in 15th, I think he should be okay, because only Sontag can do a lap in the drop zone, because Quag, Fraser, and Griffiths weren't able to get out in time. Perinin across the line, and he goes into 16th, so he's on the edge. So he's got to hope. He's got to hope that Sontag is not on an improvement, because otherwise Perinin could be out, as it's quite close there between Chatfield and Lopez was on a lap. So Lopez is not going to be happy with Chatfield on that one. Not like it's going to matter anyway, because Lopez was comfortably through into Q2 anyway. But I don't think Lopez is going to be particularly happy with that, as Lopez now then makes his way towards the left-hander of 130R, and as a result, he finds himself 2.8 seconds off of Gamba and 1.5 seconds off his personal best in the middle sector because of that overtake from Chris Chatfield. As now coming through the Casio chicane now, then we will go. The checkered flag is now out, and as they now come down the straight, as Lopez now then across the line, he will go. And across the line, and no improvement, he stays where he is. Patel, meanwhile, coming down the straight in the Lamborghini. He's currently in 10th position. Patel, across the line, he will go, and he does not improve. Wilson and Anderson have not been able to get out in time. Wilson through anyway, and so is Anderson, so their grid penalties will not come into an effect just yet. As here comes Amar Khan in the Mercedes. Across the line, he will go, and he does not improve. He stays where he is, and it looks like maybe, I think the conditions might have actually got a bit worse, in fact, maybe, as Byrne has not been able to improve.
Yeah, the same
Gamba
feeling.
has not been able to improve, so it might have given Jesus a bit of a lucky break.
Galloway's
actually in the drop zone, isn't he? So Galloway, can he get himself out of the drop zone? Across the line he will go. He actually managed to get out in time, in fact. Can he push Pereira out? No, he can't. Galloway is out. Ferrari. Galloway is out. Q-Pop crosses the line. No improvement. It's only Sontag, I think, that's left. No, I don't think Sontag made it. It says session over. No, Sontag didn't make it. So Perinin, lucky to get through into Q2. But for Jake Galloway, he is out in the Ferrari. So there you have it then. Garber top, DeRosa second with Roke in third. And your bottom 6, it's fair to say, your bottom 5, it is Galloway, Quag, Fraser, Sontag, Griffiths and Gal. But disaster for Galloway and lucky for Perinin, Dennis.
Yeah, that's a disaster for Galloway indeed. I think it did hurt him that he did his second run. Yeah, that definitely shot him in the knee, I would say. But Perrin is very lucky indeed.
That's especially what happened with him and Gal earlier on. Well, we're just going to take a brief pause and then we will get Q2 underway. But in the meantime, guys, you can let us know your prediction on who you believe will be eliminated in the second part of qualifying. But in the meantime, I'm just going to get the tweet prepared. So apologies if I go a bit silent for the moment. There you go. The tweet is up and ready, and now we just wait for Q2 to get underway. So might as well talk about some things whilst we wait for Q2 to get underway. Of course, Dennis. Obviously, I already talked about it in practice, but given you just joined, of course, it was announced today that Kirishima DeRosa would be staying at McLaren for another season. Not too much of a surprise.
No, not really. In the last few races, he has shown some good performances. And I don't think the competition for McLaren seats were that much filled with great drivers at the level of Kiro, I would say. But it's deserved for him to stay. Yeah.
Oh, anyway, we got the stream back up and we're getting Q2 underway. And once again, it is extreme wet weather conditions for the second part of qualifying as we now get underway. So we might as well ask you, Dennis, who do you believe will be eliminated in the second part of qualifying?
Ooh, that's even more difficult than in the first part. I would say... Wait, let me check the bottom 6 Q1 again. Gives me a bit of a help. I would say Federi, Wilson, both Aston Martin, Q-Bog, and I would say I would go bold, Red Bull.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to say both Aston Martins, Wilson, Ferrari, Q-Park, and I'm going to say a Lamborghini that will be eliminated. So that's my prediction. Obviously, you guys can predict in the stream chat. It's Chris Chatfield, the only Ferrari left, of course, because Galloway got eliminated in the first part of qualifying. He's out on the racetrack now then, as wait to see what everybody else looks like, as Chris Chatfield now then making his way through the left, right, and then left-hander now then we will go. As now they will make his way towards the right-hander. Rob has said Federi, Anderson, Wilson, Perinen, Motrin, and Kupok. He did put Gal there by mistake, but clearly getting the two Hungarian drivers mixed up. He meant Motrin on that occasion. Fonchanek has said Kupok, Amelia, Federi, both Aston Martins, and a Lambo. So they're the predictions that we've got in the stream chat so far. So we've got 11 cars now then out on the racetrack. It does appear that the conditions are a little bit more lighter than what they were in Q2, but of course still extreme wet weather tyres being used in this session, and it does appear like the clouds are a little bit brighter than what they were in the last in Q1 a little bit earlier on, but that's of course that. As Chatfield now they're making his way towards Spoon Curve now then. Spoon he goes now then, as he will now make his way towards the straight now then, for making his way towards 130R quite soon. All 16 cars as mentioned out on track, so Chatfield will not have any traffic to worry about on this occasion, as he now makes his way through into 130R before making his way towards the Casio chicane now then, or the Casio triangle as it's also known as, through the right and then into the left-hander we go. He will come down the pit straight quite soon now then, which he will soon do, so making his way around the right-hander, and down the pit straight will go Chris Chatfield in the Ferrari. Down the pit straight he goes, as he will start his first flying lap of Q number 2. No traffic, of course, because all 16 cars out on the racetrack as he makes his way through into the first 2 turns on the racetrack now then. He uses a bit of curb on the outside before making his way through into the S's, through the left, and then into the right, before making his way through the left and right-handers now then he will go. Flicking it in for the left, and then into the right-hander now then goes Chatfield, as he flicks the car in, as he now goes up the hill, the left-hander now then, as he will now come up towards the end of the first sector quite soon now then, and his first sector time is a 36.354 in that first sector, as he now makes his way through the right-hander now then, before he makes his way up the hill towards the hairpin now then, heading his way towards the hairpin as he now makes his way through the left-hander. As we see also in the first sector, 36.1 for Lopez in that first sector, 36.2 for Byrne, 36.3 as mentioned, of course, for Chatfield, a 35.9 for Garber. So a very quick first sector there for the championship leader. Once again, Garber showing some very good pace in the wet conditions in the Red Bull, of course, in front of Honda's home race. So obviously doing the engine supplier quite proud here. And with the Japanese style livery they've got, obviously a match made in heaven, you could say. So anyway, as now Chatfield making his way towards 130R as he does a 126.428 in that second sector, or 126.144 in the middle sector for Motrin. So in fact, Motrin's actually quicker than Chatfield in the middle sector at the moment. Whether he can keep that up is another question. In fact, Motrin looked pretty strong in that middle sector, it's fair to say, on this occasion, even going quicker than the two Mercedeses in that middle sector. But anyway, Chatfield now then coming down the pit straight, and across the line he will go. The benchmark of time is going to be a 1:49.705. Motrin across the line goes quickest by 4/10 of a second. Lopez coming down the straight. He was up on Motrin in the first sector, but lost time in the middle sector and goes into second, 4/10 off. P4 for QPOC. As meanwhile, Byrne goes second, made that third now because Garber goes quickest by 7/10 of a second. Another quick time there for Garber in the wet conditions. Anderson crosses the line to go into sixth. Rahul Patel in the Lamborghini crosses the line and goes into fourth. Here comes Perinen in the Renault now then as he makes his way on to the pit straight. Across the line he will go in the Renault and he goes into 8th position as Willows now goes into 8th, gets in front of Perinen. Here comes Chung now then in the Lamborghini. Laura Chung across the line, she will go and she goes into 9th position. Roke comes down the straight now then in the Red Bull as he now makes his way onto the pit straight, and across the line he will go now then in the Red Bull, and he goes second fastest. So currently a Red Bull 1-2 at this stage. Kirishima DeRosa crosses the line in the McLaren. The re-signed McLaren driver goes into 8th. Amar Khan looks like a very good lap for him across the line, and he goes into 3rd position. Lots beyond the two Red Bulls. This is P14 for Vaderi. Here comes Amelia Wilson, one of two drivers to have a 10-place grid penalty for this race. Wilson crosses the line, goes into 16th. So at the moment, it is currently a Red Bull 1-2. So Garber picking off where he left off in Q1 at the moment, Graf. But a good first lap for Motrin, it's fair to say.
Yeah, that's an amazing first step for Motrin, indeed. He definitely had the pace, but who doesn't have the pace is sadly Jesus.
Yep,
He's
Perinin all the way
P13 at the moment.
and
Yeah.
P11 for Willows at the moment, and P12 for Chung. So not exactly where you would expect those three drivers to be. Maybe on occasions the McLaren, but I think it's fair to say McLaren have looked pretty decent around here so far, especially in the hands of De Rosa. Although De Rosa's only P9 so far in this session. Anderson currently in the top 10, so both Aston Martins currently in the top 10 as we speak. Wilson, if it were to stay like this, she would start in last, so that would mean that Gal, who obviously crashed out in qualifying, would indeed gain a place on the grid. But at the moment, he will not gain a place on Anderson because he's currently in the top 10 threshold at the moment, which is what he needs to get into Q3, and would mean that Gal would indeed start on the back row, whether it be 22nd or 21st. That is going to be another question. We've got a yellow flag, in fact.
Flag.
Hold the phone. We've got a yellow flag, and it's Wilson. Speaking of which, Amelia Wilson's session has come to an end. So, because of that 10-place grid penalty, she will start in last position, and that's her session over and done with, and that is a massive engine failure, Dennis.
Yeah, that's a lot of smoke coming out of the back of her car. Yeah, she wasn't fast in the first lap, and now she's out because of that failure. Wait, what failure was that? Actually, engine, or was it like a water leak or something?
I think it said water leak in the cockpit, but it's still related to the engine as it's gave out a big plume of smoke, and it does mean that her session has come to an end. So we already knew she was getting a 10-place grid penalty, but obviously now, because of that, and because she's now had the failure, she will start in last alongside Miklos Gal. So Gal will, in fact, gain a place on the grid, despite the fact that he didn't set a time in Q1 due to the crash he had at the double right-hander. So at least he gains one place on that. Whether he'll gain another at the expense of Julius Anderson is going to be a question, because at the moment he's currently in the top 10. Of course, the game is paused for a moment, guys, because of course Yui's trying to sort out the spare car and there, which he has got done. So Wilson will not be able to take any further part in this qualifying session, and as a result will start in last for tomorrow's Japanese Grand Prix alongside Miklos Gal, as the two Lamborghinis have just been wheeled back to the garage there. So that's that, as we now wait for the second runs of Q2 to get underway, minus of course Amelia Wilson. as we have just over 7 minutes to go here in Q2 before we get to the final part of qualifying here at the Suzuka International Racing Course in the Mia Prefecture. I might have butchered that wrong. I am aware apparently it's not pronounced My Prefecture, it's pronounced Mi Prefecture or Mia Prefecture or something like that. I'll research the pronunciation at some point. But anyway, as we wait for the second run to get underway, we're just under 7 minutes to go. As you can see, the Japanese fans, despite it being rainy, obviously waiting for everybody to go out. Of course, in real life, the Japanese fans are very, very passionate, it's fair to say. Can't wait for F1 to return their real life next week, to be honest with you. So
Yeah.
it's going to be quite fun. But anyway, got Chatfield and one of the Mercedes is coming out, that being Franco Lopez. Lopez needs to be careful he doesn't get held up by Chris Chatfield. Of course, both of them 7th and 8th so far in this session, currently in the top 10, which would mean both of them would get through into Q3. But I think it would be, I think they would prefer if they improved on their lap, and by doing that, they need to make sure they don't hold each other up. As Chatfield now then makes his way through into the S's now then, as he will now make his way through the long swooping right-hander now then, before he approaches the left-hander up the hill. As he will now make his way towards the end of the second end of the first sector, and now through into the double right-hander we go. We will now come out of the corner and underneath the bridge we'll go. As with just over 5 minutes to go, I wonder if for some of these guys it's going to be their final flying laps. I wonder, as we've got De Rosa, Anderson, Chung, and Videri still yet to go out. Obviously, Wilson will not be able to go out because, of course, she had a failure, and because of the spare car ban, will not take any further part in this session. So she's obviously out, and because of a 10-place grid penalty, she will start in last position behind Miklos Gau, despite the fact that Gau set no time in Q1. But anyway, Chatfield now then coming around Spoon curve now then, as he will now make his way down the hill before approaching the end of the lap to start his second flying lap of Q number 2. As now all 15 cars are out on track, so luckily for Chatfield, he's not going to get held up again on this occasion, and it doesn't look like Lopez is going to interfere with him either, because there seems to be a bit of a gap between the pair of them coming out of the Casio triangle there. So now Chatfield now then starting his lap with just under 5 minutes to go, as he now starts his second and potentially final flying lap. We'll have to wait and see, of course, as he now makes his way through into the first 2 turns on the racetrack. Through into turn 2 he goes, before he makes his way through into the S's now then, flicking it in through the left and then into the right, before making his way through the left and right-hander very soon. So through the left he goes, and then into the long swooping right-hander he will go. As now Chatfield coming up the hill now then, through the left-hander he goes. As Chatfield, let's see what his first sector is going to look like, and he's 4 tenths up on Garber in the first sector, so a very strong first sector for Chatfield there, nearly 5 tenths up and nearly a second quicker than his personal best in the first sector. So Chatfield shows some good pace. Lopez on the other hand down on his personal best by, well, he's 4 tenths off on Garber in the first sector. I'm not sure about his personal best, as he's currently 1.1 seconds off of Garber overall on the lap. Let's see what the second sector is like, because we do tend to see some drivers either gain or lose time in this middle sector, of course. Now they come towards Spoon Curve now then. See what Chatfield's second sector is going to look like now then, as he comes around the left-hander. Now making his way down the hill before approaching the end of the second sector quite soon. And let's see what Chatfield's second sector is now going to look like. And his second sector, whoa, he's nearly a second up in the second sector. So whether the track is improving or not, I'm not sure. Lopez wasn't actually up on his personal best by only 31,000. So in fact, he's actually gained some time in that middle sector. So Lopez could gain it back in the last sector. We'll see, and we'll see an improvement there for Lopez. But he's clearly not quicker than this man at the moment, Chris Chatfield. He's coming down the pit straight, and across the line, he will go in the Ferrari, and it's a 147.3. So he goes 1.1 seconds quicker than Garber. A little bit similar to what we saw Garber do earlier on in Q1, as it's P7 for Lopez. He did find time in the last sector, but not able to improve on position. Byrne across the line was up on his personal best, but finds time in the last sector to go up in the last sector, and goes up. Oh, well, in fact, goes up into 5th, gets in front of Motrin. Garber not on an improvement and stays in 2nd place. Roke doesn't improve, he stays in 3rd. Motrin doesn't improve, he stays in 6th. Here comes Rahul Patel, who's on an improvement, and he's currently currently in 8th position. Across the line goes the Indian driver, and he goes into 2nd place. In fact, he goes quicker as well than Garnber. Perinen is not on an improvement. Now, I wonder if it's got something to do with the McLaren behind, and Perinen does not improve. And
He's
he's
out.
13th, and Willows goes into 2nd. So I think Perinen is out, because look how much time we got. Yes, so Perinen is out in Q2 as car improves to go up into 4th position. Lopez is currently in 9th. De Rosa is not improving, and he's currently just in the brink of the top 10. Anderson, the one behind, is currently in the drop zone at the moment. De Rosa across the line, he will go, and he does not improve. He stays in 10th. Anderson doesn't improve, so he stays in 11th. So he is out of qualifying, and he will drop to 21st. So Gal does gain another place on the grid as a result. Chung goes up into 6th position. Lopez on the brink, and Lopez is out because Federi goes into 6th position.
Oh.
So Lopez not able to improve. It seemed like he wasn't able to get any temperature in those tyres, and as a result, Lopez is out in Q2 thanks to the improving conditions, Dennis. As you can see, because Chatfield was still able to improve on his in-lap, but Lopez out. So the inconsistency of Mercedes coming back to bite him, and this time in the wet conditions.
Yeah, indeed. That's what I was referring about in Q1. But yeah, for Lopez is yet again an elimination in Q2. But at least for Mercedes' car is in Q3, he's in 4th. But they still have one car to attack for pole, because in Q3 I think everyone will have a decent chance to get pole because of that conditions.
Indeed, and Anderson and Wilson will start on the back row of the grid, meaning that Gal will start in 20th position despite not setting a time. So Anderson and Wilson will be on the back row thanks to their 10-place grid penalties, and I think Anderson will be the one in front of Wilson because of the fact that Anderson set a quicker time than Wilson. So Anderson will be 21st and Wilson will be 22nd on the grid. So that's how that one will look like. At least we don't have a complicated system unlike in F1. If you know, you know, because of what happened at Monza. We don't have a complicated system. Ours is just basically simple. So anyway, simpler to understand, really. So anyway, that is Q2 done with, and Lopez and Perinen both out of qualifying. We didn't touch upon that with Perinen, but obviously he was unlucky in Q1, but on this occasion in Q2, well, he wasn't able to get any luck this time by.
Yeah, he was just not fast enough. Let's put it that way. He was, just too slow.
Indeed, as now the checkered flag has come out, and there you have it. So Chatfield, Willows, and Patel, the top 3, thanks to the improving track conditions. And your bottom 6, Lopez, De Rosa, Anderson, he will drop to 21st because of his penalty. Perinen, Kupok, and Wilson, who will drop to 22nd thanks to her penalty, meaning that Gal will start in 20th for tomorrow's Japanese Grand Prix. So we're just going to take a brief pause for a moment, and then we'll come back for Q3. But in the meantime, guys, let us know your prediction on who you believe will be eliminated in the... Well, it's not eliminated. Who you believe will take pole position for tomorrow's Japanese Grand Prix. But in the meantime, I'm just going to get the tweet prepared, so apologies if I go a little bit silent.
But I also have to say that it was a good effort from Federi to go into P6. I think he was high up in Q1 as well, so he's done a brilliant job so far.
Really help his chances out, it's fair to say, Dennis, given he's rumoured with the Aston Martin seat.
Yep, indeed.
And there you go. The tweets are now up because I put a little extra thing to talk about Anderson and Wilson's grid penalty. So we just wait for Q3 to get underway. Might as well mention also Dennis as well whilst we're waiting. Of course, I mentioned it with Yuri, of course, but finally the Formula E sign-ups are officially open. And one of the changes, of course, is that BMW will be splitting with Andretti at the end of the season, meaning that obviously because they want to focus on their partnership with McLaren in the top class, and it means that Andretti will be going all on their own. Any surprises with that news, or were you kind of anticipating it?
I think it was a bit expected because I think BMW was on the focus for the top class with McLaren anyway, so you're not really surprised. But let's see how Andretti will do when they will be on their own.
For the first time since I want to say the 2017 season, I think was the last time they were on their own. I might be wrong on that, but they have been with BMW for a few seasons, and it'll be the first time in a few seasons that they'll have to go on their own again. So it'll be interesting to see how they will cope. Judging from the fact in the sign-ups, it says there'll be a Group 2 team next season, and Nissan's going to be a Group 1 team. It might not be all well and good for them in the first season, but we will wait and see, of course. I mean, we've seen with Nissan this season with Dominic Decelli. It doesn't sometimes Group 2 doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, but we'll see. As we wait for the third part qualifying to get underway again, guys, let us know your prediction on who you believe will take pole position for tomorrow's Japanese Grand Prix, and of course we will read that out when Q3 gets underway. As of course, we are obviously. I think it was 25% chance of rain for Q3. Now that is quite a low percentage, so whether we will get any rain or not is another question. Because Grand Prix 4 does like to be a little bit mysterious when it comes to that. To be honest with you, even if you put a percentage down, it obviously because it spreads towards 5 different time sections of a session, can sometimes mean that you don't get any rain at all. But we will see. As we wait for the next part of qualifying to begin, the final part of qualifying, and it should be quite interesting. Of course, obviously Red Bull have looked particularly strong, even though they didn't top the last session, but I think that was mainly because of the conditions changing. So it'd be interesting to see if they will still be quickest in this session, as we've got the stream back up on our screen. And yet it is raining for the final part of qualifying, but it does look a little bit changeable. It's a little bit half and half between an inter and an extreme wet. So be interested to see what happens in this session as we get underway. So I might as well ask you, Dennis, who do you believe will take pole position for tomorrow's Japanese Grand Prix?
I think I had this prediction in my mind for a bit, but I say the pole man's name will be Gamba, Franco Gamba.
Interesting. I'm going to go a bit bold here and say that a Red Bull will not get pole. I'm going to say Armar Car for pole. I'm going to go with a Mercedes for pole position. And let's see the tyres that everybody is running on in this occasion. And it does look like everybody is on the extreme wet tyre on this occasion. So nobody going... I don't think... Because it says on the Revel Radar, there's a little bit of a chance of the inter tyre. So whether we will see the inter tyre during this session or not is going to be another question. So anyway, we'll wait to see who's going to be the first to come out onto the track in Q number 3. As the seconds tick down on the clock on your top of your screen. And... let's see who's going to get out first then in this final part of qualifying as we wait to see who it will be. Is there any movement on the mini-map? I'm trying to have a look on the right. I don't think there is at the moment. Everybody's just staying there for the moment. As we wait for any movement. Bit of a surprise, really. I'm not seeing any movement at the moment. As, there we go. We have got one now. Dairy has now come out onto the racetrack in the Alfa Romeo, who's had so far a pretty good qualifying session. Be interested to see where he ends up after this qualifying session here in Japan. Looks like similar conditions to what we saw at the beginning of Q2 a little bit earlier on. So be interested to see what sort of lap times we get on this occasion. Anyway, predictions in the stream chat. Ra has said Gamba pole. Rob has said Patel for pole. He's going quite bold. Chris has said Gamba pole. Nathan said Gamba pole. Fonchanet says Car for pole. Kiro as a joke. Kiro says as a joke, him for pole, even though he got eliminated in Q2. And I've just realised that apparently I made a bit of an error in the tweet. Yes, I did. So apologies for that. Let me just quickly put a little asterisk there. But he just notified me on Twitter there, so just put a little asterisk there. So, yep. And anyway, so we've got some cars now out on track. There's still one more car left to come out onto the track, and now there we go. All 10 cars now out on track. So Videri will not get any traffic on his first flying lap of Q number 3, as the sky is pretty bright still around here in the land of the rising sun here in Japan. So, but still not come with a dry track, I'm afraid. So, anyways, Videri now then makes his way through out of Spoon Curve now then, preparing for his first lap of Q3. Shouldn't have any interference from in front or behind, because he's got quite a bit of a gap to the second car on the racetrack. Although they could get bothered by the car behind them if they're not careful. As now Videri makes his way now then towards the Casio triangle, through into the right and then into the left-hander he will go in the Alfa Romeo as he now makes his way through the right-hander, and Videri now then is going to start his first flying lap of Q number 3 coming down the pit straight, and Videri, the Italian, is going to start his lap now then, and Videri now then making his way towards the first few turns on the racetrack now then, so into turn 2 he will go. As now he comes up towards the S's, and now through into the left, then into the right we go, and then into the next part of the S's now then we will go. And taking it quite cautiously, it's fair to say, given the wet conditions, as we see the Honda banners over there. It's signifying, of course, that this track is owned by Honda themselves. Up the hill goes Videri in the Alfa Romeo. Let's see what the first sector is going to look like for the Italian. His first sector time is going to be a 35.9, so quite a good first sector there for Andrea Videri. Let's see what everybody else is doing behind, as he just goes underneath the crossover section of the Suzuka circuit. Let's see what everybody else's first sector is going to look like as Videri now rounds the hairpin. He goes, just passing the bit where Kvyat, of course, had his crash in 2015 in real life. As we've got some more, 35.5 for Carr in the first sector, 36.1 for Chung in the first sector, a 35.9 for Chatfield, as Videri now then makes his way through into Spoon Curve there, as Videri going slightly quicker than Chatfield in that first sector there, as 37.7 for Motrin, so not exactly a good first sector, probably to be expected really. 36.2 for Byrne, not the best first sector, although Carr is getting held up by Chung there, so Carr's first lap definitely going to get interfered a little bit by Laura Chung in the Lamborghini, as a 125.5 for Videri in that middle sector as he now makes his way towards the Casio triangle now, then through the right and then into the left-hander now then he will go. And let's see what Andre Videri can do now then in the Alfa Romeo, as now Videri comes down the pit straight now then, and Videri is now going to cross the line in the Alfa Romeo, and he does a 148.592. His car is up still in the second sector by 2 tenths. He looks like he's finally got by on Chung. Looks like he must have got him either at 130 or at Spoon Curve, and he did lose some time in the middle sector because of that hold up from Chung. But let's see how much he can gain back in this last sector as he's still up on Videri at this point in time. Car now then down the pit straight and across the line comes Armar Carr in the Mercedes, and he goes 3 tenths quicker as Chung goes into third position. Here comes Chris Chatfield in Ferrari across the line. He will go now then, Chatfield across the line, and he goes into third position. Looked like he gained some time, it seems, a little bit, but still down on Videri. Motrin goes into fifth, way off the pace it seems. Patel goes into fifth, 2 seconds off of Carr there. Here comes George Roque in the Red Bull across the line, and he goes into fourth. Here comes Joseph Willows now then in the McLaren. Across the line he will go, and he slots into second place, gets in front of Videri. Here comes Franco Garbu, who's way up on Carr in the middle sector by 6 tenths. Across the line he will go, and he breaks into the 1 minute 47, so 1 minute 47.563 for Franco Garbu. And at the moment, the front row is currently the championship contenders. But a good first lap for Videri, Dennis.
Yeah, indeed. A great first lap for Videri. He's shown that he has some brilliant pace around here in these conditions. But yeah, P4 would be brilliant. Good position for Videri indeed. Okay, so there's no sound at the moment. I don't know where Joe is. Joe, you're muted for some reason. Or is he not there for a moment? But yeah, anyway. We see now the cars coming back into the pits.
Back.
It was a
And,
mighty. Okay, there you are.
Yep. Yeah, I did say give me a mo, as you can see in the chat. So anyway.
Okie dokie.
So anyway, as currently 4th place for Andre Videri in the Alfa Romeo, as Videri now gets wheeled back into the garage in the Alfa, as the Lamborghini there of not sure which Lamborghini it is because both of them are in the pit lane. But we wait for the second runs to get underway and potentially the final runs as well. As Garber currently at the top with Kart in second, Willows further, Derry fourth, and Chatfield in fifth with Burn sixth, Roke seventh with Chung eighth, Patel ninth, and Motrin in 10th position. As now wait for the next part, well, the second flying laps to get underway in Q3 and potentially the last ones. We will wait and see. As Chung has just been wheeled back into the garage in the Lamborghini. As we wait next laps to get underway. As we wait for the next car to come out on track. Obviously not Lopez because he got eliminated in the first part of qualifying. He's just a player car, so just ignore him.
You mean the second part?
The second part, so I am doing the same thing as I did on Twitter. So anyway, as now we wait to see who's going to get out first. Will it be Videri again, or will it be another car that will be first on track? In fact, it looks like Lamborghini mechanics are getting ready to send Chung out onto the racetrack. Will she get out before Videri? Let's see, as we've got just under 7 minutes to go in this session now then. And the answer to that is yes, she does. So she's not wasting any time, and she's going out on track first as she now makes her way out of the pit lane. Currently in 8th position and looking to see if she can improve. Currently 8th and 9th for the two Lamborghini drivers at the moment as Chung makes her way out of turn number 2 now then. Of course, last time out in Monza, they were carrying a special livery, of course, a special yellow livery, I guess in inspiration to what Ferrari did at Monza, although they only did a little bit of yellow. And it's a bit ironic, I'm wearing a yellow Ferrari shirt now. I ended up buying the shirt as a result of it. Yeah, they took inspiration from that, but obviously they've reverted back to green now here at Monza. So as now Chung makes her way through into the double right-hander. Out of the double right-hander now, then will come Laura Chung into the Lamborghini. She will now make her way towards the hairpin now then. Into the left-hander she will go. As she will now make her way towards the long swooping right-handers. There's still 2 cars left in the pit lane in terms of Willows and Byrne, and that's that. So that's really as Chung now then making her way through Spoon Curve, and now she will be preparing for a second flying out quite soon. All 10 cars are out on track, so Chung will not get held up at all in this session. So now Chung making her way through into 130R. As now she'll make her way towards the Casio Triangle. Now coming around the right, left-hander. Give me a moment, Dennis. You might as well take us through the lap.
Okay, so here we go. Chung starting her probably, I would say, final lap already because it's only 5 minutes to go and the track went quite wrong. Yeah, Chung going through the first corner. Oh, already through the second one. Like playing with the throttle pedal. Now going through the S's. To the left, to the right, and again through the left. Now again through the right. Yeah, right. I had to say that, yeah. Now going through the final part of the S's. Now heading towards the first sector split. Will she improve? Let's see. She is up on her personal best by 3/10. But she's 4.5 tenths down on Franco Gamba at the moment. So Chung heading towards the hairpin. Going through the hairpin now. Accelerates through it. Now flat out towards the spoon curve. To the long right, flat right, and now you can continue.
No, you can continue. It's all right.
Okay, good. So now through the spoon corner, and on this long back straight where we will see the second sector split from Chang. Will she still be up on her personal best? Yes, by over a second. Now through 130R. Now going into
Yellow flag.
towards because you're trying to yellow flag,
Motrin
and it's Modjan. He spun.
spun around, so that's his lap down the drain, and he was actually up in his first sector. He was actually holding up the likes of Garber and Chatfield, so their laps have been compromised thanks to Motrin's mistake. So yeah, that lap's gone down the toilet, and it looks like he's going to be starting in 10th and over 4 seconds off of Garber.
Yeah, indeed, as now Chang will complete this lap. That will be big improvement. Let's see where she will go, and that's P4 for her.
There he's also on improvement, and he's only 3/10 off his good friend Garber. So this could be a very good lap for Videri. Remember what Quag was able to do at Barcelona when he was able to get the Alfa Romeo on the front row? Could Videri do something similar here? Videri, across the line he will go, and he goes into second place. He gets onto the front row, but Roke could stop that, and he does. He goes into second place, so pushes Videri off the front row. Patelli's also on an improvement now then in the Lamborghini, as he now makes his way through the long, swooping right-hander now then on the track. His way down the straight he will go, and Patel across the line he will go in the Lamborghini. Where can he place himself? And he goes into 5th, not able to beat Videri. Car across the line goes to 4th, slots behind Videri as a result. And here is Chatfield and Garber. Of course, their laps got compromised by Motrin's mistake, and it looks like Chatfield has also been able to overtake Garber somewhere on the racetrack. But Chatfield across the line he will go, and he stays in 8th position, and Garber stays top at the moment. Willows is on improvement, but he's still 4/10 down on Garber at the moment. So let's see where he could go. He could get himself in the top 3, but let's see. But maybe even slot behind Videri. Willows across the line and goes into 4th position. Slots behind Videri as Byrne is on a lap, but he's not on an improvement. And I wonder if it's got something to do with Motrin, who of course, I was saying, I think Motrin's actually got some damage because he's just come back into the pits, and Byrne does not improve as a result. So I think Motrin did get some damage, and that may have held up Byrne. But as a result, it is Franco Gamba who has taken pole position for tomorrow's Japanese Grand Prix, and it is a Red Bull front row lockout. But what a qualifying for Andre Videri, Dennis.
Yeah, that's an amazing qualifying for Videri indeed. P3 on the grid in the second row. That reminds me a bit of David Kubok in Australia in 2019. And also, yeah, it's the second time this season that Alfa Romeo will line up in the top 3. Amazing achievement for him.
Yep, of course, Quag qualified on the front row, of course, at the Spanish Grand Prix, and now Videri has been able to get a very high grid position. Everything he can to get himself still on the top class grid for next season, as we wait for the seconds to tick down before we can show you the pole lap that was set by Franco Gamba. Luckily, the hold-up for Motrin did not cost him pole position at all, and it will be a Red Bull front row lockout for tomorrow's Japanese Grand Prix, as they will now be entering the pits this time by. But a brilliant lap from Franco Gamba nonetheless. Another pole position for the Italian as he looks to see in his final season in the top class, as he looks to try and get his first and only championship in the top class before he leaves. Gamba now then into the pits. Car starts in 5th. We know the race pace of that Mercedes is pretty good, so I wouldn't rule him out of a fight tomorrow at the Japanese Grand Prix. Of course, he did win here in 2019 in controversial style, you could say, but he still won here. And but of course, Red Bull won here last season with Gal winning that race, of course, ahead of Gamba, who I believe was able to get a 1-2 finish for Red Bull at that race last season. 3, 2, 1, and 0, which means the checkered flag is out. And now we're going to take a look at the pole lap from Gamba. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. That was a bit of a weird one.
Yeah,
That is how Franco Gamba took pole position for tomorrow's Japanese Grand Prix. A very good lap indeed. Obviously, he had his second lap ruined, but luckily it didn't affect him whatsoever. And he leads a Red Bull front row lockout in front of Honda's home race. A perfect start for Honda indeed, and that will definitely put a smile on the Honda bosses' faces. That is for sure. But anyway, your top 10 then. Franco Gamba on pole position with George Roque in second, ensuring a Red Bull front row lockout. Andre Verderi, an impressive third in the Alfa Romeo as he looks to try and keep his top class career alive. Jose Willows in fourth, Amar Karl fifth with Rahul Patel in sixth, Laura Chung in seventh with Chris Chatfield eighth, Evan Byrne in ninth, and Roland Motrin, thanks to that mistake on his second lap, qualifying in 10th position. But a very good qualifying session, you'd have to say, Dennis.
Yeah, it was very exciting. The rain spiced things up. But in the end, Red Bull delivered in front of the Honda fans here, the Honda bosses, of course. Yeah, put both cars in front row, and also shout out to Federi. An epic qualifying from him, I have to say.
Indeed so. Well, that has been it from the qualifying session here at Suzuka. I hope you have enjoyed it. A very entertaining session indeed in the wet conditions. Question is, though, can Red Bull get another home victory for Honda tomorrow like they did last season where they got a 1-2 finish? Be interested to see. And will it be wet or dry tomorrow? That will be interesting as well. Of course, there is no F2 this week. Of course, that'll be back next week at Dijon. Obviously, the first ever wildcard race for F2 next week as well at Dijon for their French Grand Prix. So look forward to that. But until then, that has been it. I hope you have enjoyed it. So thank you all for watching. I've been JW97. He's been Dennis Graff. And we'll see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. BST for the 53-lap Japanese Grand Prix. Till then, take care.
Bye. See you tomorrow.